Good evening, everyone. I'm Kenneth Kiesler. I'm the director of the University Orchestras and a professor of conducting here. Thank you. I've been asked to tell you a little story. In the program, it says a letter from Ira. When I was 18 years old, having grown up listening to several recordings of Rhapsody in Blue and American in Paris in my home, as I was a freshman in college, I went into a little shop where there were some LPs, and I saw a record that said Original Jazz Band Version, Rhapsody in Blue. It was recorded by the Berlin Symphony Orchestra. I thought, this is really odd. What's the original jazz band version? And what have I been listening to all these years, since I was 5 or 6 years old, and why was it recorded in Berlin? So I did what every 18-year-old did in those days. I picked up the phone, called directory assistance, and found the phone number for the conductor and the pianist. I didn't realize that this was a sign that I had what people now would say chutzpah. I thought it's just what you did in those days. So I called and I said to the conductor, "Hi, my name's Ken Kiesler and I'm a student. I'm a freshman, and I was just wondering about your recording because I was listening to it and I have the full score of the orchestra version and I'm listening to the original jazz band version and it sounds just like the score I have in front of me." And he was a little embarrassed to say, "Well, actually, maybe it's not the original jazz band version, but we use some things from the original jazz band version. But maybe the piano part was different," so I called the pianist, very famous guy, at his home, also directory assistance. And he said, "I really love doing that recording. My work speaks for itself." And that was the end of that. So I was stuck listening to all of these recordings. I had the ones I grew up with that I brought with me to college and so grown up with and so forth. So then I thought, well, I'm going to have to call somebody else. So I picked up the phone, dialed 411 or whatever it was I called in those days, and I said, "I'd like the number for Ira Gershwin somewhere in California." And in about a minute, I had the phone number. I dialed it. The man answered the phone. I said, "My name is Ken Kiesler. I'd like to speak with Ira Gershwin." "This is Ira Gershwin." And that led to a series of events that were rather extraordinary. I had 3 conversations with Ira Gershwin. I had a couple of conversations with his secretary, Mr. Carter, had letters back and forth. Today at lunch with Mark and others, I mentioned that I thought I had only had conversations, but in my scrapbook today I found a letter I had forgotten about that I did write to Ira. I have the letters that he wrote me, and one of the most important one framed in my office, because at the time you weren't able to get a score of the original jazz band version, let alone perform it. Wasn't allowed to get a copy of the score from the Library of Congress. So Ira Gershwin wrote me a letter. He gave me permission to get a copy of the score. They sent me also all kinds of sketches and the 2-piano version and some other things. And he authorized me to give a performance of it, the first one since the Whiteman Orchestra, the Whiteman Band had done it, say in the mid-20s, the last time. I think that's when it was. So at the age of 19, the next year, I gave a performance of it with a sort of half student and half professional ensemble. I got 2 grants, one from the National Endowment for the Arts and one from a from a family foundation. And we put on a performance. And it happened to coincide with the 50th anniversary of the piece, or almost the 50th anniversary, the Gershwin stamp, which came out then. And so Downbeat magazine did a big story about it, and the Library of Performing Arts at Lincoln Center had a big display in the lobby with glass cases with the program from the concert and the letters I had from Ira, and so on, and it became kind of a big thing. And as a result, I started to get letters from people who played in the Whiteman Band saying, "Actually, I remember a performance we gave in Trenton, New Jersey where this happened," or "we gave this performance and I remember that happened." So This led to my looking at the orchestra version of Rhapsody in Blue a little more closely. I bought 3 copies of the music, meaning the music that the orchestra plays from, and I found they were all different. So I started writing to Warner Brothers, to Irving Brown at Warner Brothers. And Irving Brown said to me, you know, we need to straighten this out. I don't know why there are 3 different versions of the music. And that's why we need this critical edition. It's 2014, and there still is no score of the original jazz band version available for sale or in a library anywhere. It's other than the Library of Congress. It's only available if you rent the music to perform it. They send you a photocopy of the score, or actually these days I hear they've engraved something, but it's apparently missing several measures. So the next person who's going to speak to you is the person who's responsible for doing the new edition, the new critical edition of the original jazz band version of Rhapsody in Blue, and we're going to perform it for you in a few minutes. I just thought you might like to hear the story about the letters from Ira Gershwin. Thank you so much.
Good evening. My name is Ryan Raul Ben-Yagali, and I'm an assistant professor at Colorado College, author of a new book by Oxford University Press called Arranging Gershwin, Rhapsody in Blue and the Creation of an American Icon. But most importantly for tonight, I'm a member of the editorial board for the George and Ira Gershwin Critical Edition, and I'm also the editor of the arrangement of the Paul Whiteman, Freddie Groffet, George Gershwin version of Rhapsody in Blue that we're going to hear here in a few minutes. The last thing I think that any of us want at this point in the night is for a musicologist to drone on and on about the piece of music that we're about to hear, especially when it's something that we all know as well as Rhapsody in Blue. But how well do we really know it? I think that the edition that we're about to hear reveals just how much that we can learn from a critical edition and from the process of scholarship and collaboration that's emerging out of the Gershwin Initiative here at University of Michigan. This is what we're going to hear, is what Rhapsody in Blue sounded like on February 12th, 1924. It is different than the symphonic arrangement made famous by Leonard Bernstein. First, it's faster. It's a lot faster. Second, there are unexpected instrumental moments. There's a duet by a sopranino saxophone and a baritone saxophone. There's a newly restored trumpet solo. There's only 8 violins. No cellos, no violas. Third and finally, through this reduced orchestral texture that we're going to experience tonight, we hear Gershwin's original compositional intentions. We hear the melodies, the cadenzas, and the ensemble. We hear how they all come alive in the way that they first did some 90 years ago at its premiere at Paul Whiteman's Experiment in Modern Music. So thank you very much for joining me in this premiere performance of the first of many critical editions that form the core of the Gershwin Initiative here at University of Michigan. And without further ado, on with the show.